The road. It was my first day at the school, where I had just been appointed. When I stepped out of the small government lodge reserved for village workers, I found a group of children waiting by the roadside. Apparently, it was a custom in the village. The students would walk to school together, about 15 minutes away. The children were between 6 and 10 years old. The moment they saw me, they set off down the road, as if silently inviting me to follow. The one who kept me company along the way was Mia, a 4th grader. It was impossible not to notice that she loved talking. On both sides of the road stretched endless dry land. As we walked, Mia told me about her classmates. At first it sounded as if she was simply introducing the students, but before long I realized she was actually trying to shape my opinions. "Bella is very nice, teacher. They came from Istanbul last year. She's very pretty. Her bag is beautiful too. Aaron is very naughty. He chases us and tries to pull our braids. Alice cheats during games. According to the rules of Mia's little world, the proper thing was simple. I should like the people she liked and ignore the ones she didn't. She kept talking without pause, never expecting an answer from me. We were walking on the left side of the road. Suddenly, Mia crossed to the other side. Without thinking, I followed her. By the time we reached the school, my head was pounding from the dry heat and from Mia's endless stream of words. Still, with the help of a painkiller, I managed to have a pleasant day. After school, we walked back along the same road together. The next morning, Mia and the other children were waiting outside my door again. They were clearly determined not to leave me alone. My walking companion had many more stories to tell. She talked almost without stopping. We were walking on the left side of the road again. Since very few cars ever passed through the village road and there were no sidewalks, we walked along the edge like a small colony of ants. Some children walked on our side. Others walked quietly along the right. Then Mia did exactly what she had done the day before. She suddenly crossed to the other side. That was when I realized that all the children were now walking on the right side of the road. This time, I did not follow her. I looked ahead. There was nothing on the road that required me to cross. Mia called out to me, "Teacher, why aren't you coming?" I laughed. "Why don't we just keep walking on this side?" The children looked at me with pale, frightened expressions. Mia seemed both shocked and irritated by my question. "But teacher," she said, "the tree is there." The tree. She had emphasized the word. Why was she reacting so strongly to it? Up ahead, by the roadside, stood a single tree. "Yes," I said, "there is a tree. Why does that sound like a problem?" I had taken only a few more steps when the children suddenly started screaming as if they had gone mad. I froze. Cold fear spread through my body. What were they seeing that I could not? Mia began to cry. Teacher, please come here. I'm so scared. Now I was frightened too, frightened by their fear. My hands trembling, I crossed the road. The moment the children saw me step to the other side, they relaxed and continued walking. I turned to Mia, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Why are you all so scared? I asked. What is there on that side of the road that you can see and I cannot? The tree, teacher, she whispered. That tree catches people. Once it caught a boy. It broke all his bones. He died. A tree caught a boy, I said. That's ridiculous. Did you see it happen yourself? No, teacher, but our parents always warn us. They say we must never go near it. They tell many stories about it. From what I understood, the adults had frightened the children for some reason. There must have been a danger along the road, and perhaps the story was meant to keep them away from it. That afternoon, I walked Mia home and spoke with her mother about the road. The woman welcomed me warmly. Before I knew it, I was sitting in their yard, drinking tea beside a table covered with freshly baked pastries. About the tree on the road, I said. Why are the children so afraid of it? Let them be afraid, teacher, she replied calmly. Let me tell you the story. You enjoy your tea. She checked the kettle beside the table and sat across from me, adjusting the colorful scarf on her head. Years ago, she told me, a young bride had lived in the village. When her baby was born, they said the child died, but the mother refused to believe it. Not long after, she lost her mind, and she died soon after. Her parents came and took her body back to their own village. The husband was left alone. The father of the baby worked in the fields beyond the school. Each morning he passed along that road, wanting to visit his child's grave every day and hoping travelers would say a prayer. He had the baby buried beside the road. He lost his first son, the woman said softly, and then his wife. Not an easy burden. For a while, the villagers cared for the grave. They watered it, cleaned it. They said the father had done the right thing. Then 2 years later, a terrible snowstorm came in March. Afterward, days of relentless rain followed. No one could leave their homes. When the storm finally passed and the children returned to school, something had changed. Where the grave had once been, a tree had appeared, a young tree. Leafless but strong. The children were curious. Everyone knew there had been a grave there, so they went closer. And then the woman said quietly, the tree caught one of them. I choked on my tea. What do you mean, caught him? With its branches, she said simply. It wrapped around him and squeezed. The villagers ran when they heard the children screaming. They barely managed to pull the boy free. But all his bones were broken, she said. He was a weak child already. He couldn't survive it. The villagers wanted to cut the tree down, but the ground was still considered a grave, and the tree had grown unnaturally fast, so they left it standing. And since then, she said, we simply stay away from it. That night I went to sleep with a plan. The next day, I listened to none of Mia's chatter on the way to school. My mind was full of my own thoughts. After classes ended, I lingered behind. I wanted to be alone on the road. When Mia asked, "Teacher, aren't we going?" I smiled and said, "You go ahead. I have work to do." Once the children were gone, I began walking. I stopped beside the tree. It looked perfectly ordinary. Its thin branches were covered with tiny, unopened buds. I spread a cloth on the ground beside it. I placed my sandwich and my book on the cloth, then leaned my back against the trunk. The vast plain stretched endlessly before me, the quiet beauty of the barren land, the smell of soil, the warmth of the sun. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Then I felt movement behind me. The woman had been right. The branches were moving. They were reaching for me. I decided not to be afraid. I took a deep breath. When the branches wrapped around my body, I embraced the tree. I wrapped my arms around its branches. I leaned my head against it, and I spoke softly, deeply. If it was real, if this was truly happening, then there had to be a reason. Everything in the world was tied to a cause. We stayed like that for nearly 5 minutes, holding each other, talking, sharing our grief. When my strength finally began to fade, the branches slowly loosened their grip. They withdrew. The tree stood upright again. We said goodbye, and I went home, without telling anyone. The next day, I knew I would return. We had agreed on that. The following morning, as we walked to school, I was lost in thought. My head was bowed. I knew Mia would pull my arm when it was time to cross the road, but suddenly I bumped into a child standing in front of me. The children had stopped, all of them. They were standing by the roadside, staring. Even I had not expected this. We were all looking at the forbidden place. The tree. Every branch was covered with blossoms. White blossoms. Delicate green leaves surrounded them. I walked closer. The centers of the flowers were pink, soft and innocent, like the face of a newborn child. I embraced the tree again, but this time it did not embrace me, and I understood. It was no longer trapped in its branches. It had bloomed. I kissed its flowers. From that day on, the children and I watered the tree together. We planted flowers around it. We planted other trees nearby so it would not be lonely. Everyone came to love it, and it bloomed in every season. It grew into a great tree. Who knows what it looks like now? I have grown old. Perhaps it has grown old too. Perhaps its trunk has bent with age, but that's all right. After all, our roads lead to the same place, and when we meet again, we will talk, and it will tell me everything that happened while I was gone.